Hey everyone, welcome in. This channel has always been about not only highlighting the problems of our world, but also offering actionable and practical solutions for creating more freedom, sovereignty, and empowerment in your life. This episode presents one such solution, the Freedom Cell Network. I'm joined by John Bush, the creator of the Freedom Cell Network, to discuss what it is, how it works, and how you can get involved. That's coming up next. And welcome back, everyone, to yet another episode of the Wizard Factory podcast, where together we explore the universe through ourselves. My name is Logan Hart, and I'm extremely excited to be joined today by John Bush. John is a radical activist and entrepreneur who lives on a 10-acre intentional community in Central Texas with his 2 kids and his lovely fiancée and business partner Rebecca. He is an expert on parallel systems like alternative currencies, local food production systems, and mutual aid networks. He's the creator of the Freedom Cell Network, the Exit and Build Strategy, and Live Free Academy. His ultimate goal is the creation of a sovereign community of self-governing liberty lovers that are no longer dependent on the state and free to live their lives in peace and harmony with one another and the earth. Welcome, John, to the channel. It's a pleasure to have you, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be with you.
Cool. So we're going to be kind of doing this in 2 parts on separate episodes. So today we're going to focus more on the Freedom Cell Network and kind of the first steps that people can take when they're wanting to essentially create more freedom in their own personal lives without waiting for someone else to help them, waiting on some politician to save them, any of that sort of thing. So before we get into that, I'd love to just start a bit about your journey, John. And I know you started kind of in the political sphere and activism, anti-politics, I should say. And that sort of, after a while, you started pivoting towards these kind of more solutions. It's like, okay, after a while of shaking your fist at government buildings and things, you're like, okay, what else can I do? Like, how can I take this further? So tell me a bit about that.
Well, I first became aware of some problems in the world with 9/11, and so caught a documentary by Alex Jones in 2002 on cable access in Austin called 9/11 Road to Tyranny, and that was a big eye opener for me. That led me down a rabbit hole of conspiracy research, Council on Foreign Relations, Bilderberg Group, all that stuff. And I was introduced to libertarianism through Ron Paul during the presidential campaign in 2007, 2008. And of course, he didn't become the president, but we managed to create a pretty solid little activist crew working for his campaign there in 2007, 2008. We weren't working for his campaign. It was like a grassroots. We call it the Ron Paul Love-olution. And after that, we decided to start a political action committee in Austin to push back on the police state, surveillance state, and try to make some reforms at the local and state level. We actually were doing pretty good work and having what would seem to be political victories. For example, we managed to get privacy policies for all the fusion centers in Texas. These are the Department of Homeland Security information gathering, intelligence sharing systems. They're supposed to prevent them from collecting information of a religious, social, or political view. We also spearheaded an effort to stop police officers from being trained to do blood withdrawals in Austin. But at the end of the day, these seemed like they were big victories, but in reality, we were simply slowing the growth of tyranny, and that wasn't satisfactory for me. So the focus shifted away from what can we do to get politicians to do the right thing to what actions can we take right now in order to create more freedom. And since then, that's grown to focus on what type of systems, what type of parallel economies, what type of networks and connections and relationships can we make in order to create a framework for us to experience real freedom in our lifetime and hopefully have the institutions that are capable of creating lasting freedom for future generations to come.
That's fascinating. And did the Freedom Cell Network come about before Exit and Build?
Yeah, so in 2014 or so, I was really kicking around the idea of why is it that there's so many people that understand liberty? And, I was around in the early liberty movement days after the Ron Paul campaign, where most everyone was focused on politics. There's still a lot of people that are wanting to restore the Republican Party. And I saw the growth of voluntarism, and a lot of folks were starting to learn about agorism at the time. And so I came to recognize this, but at the same time, I realized there's so many people that are still complying with all the government edicts and paying taxes and all this stuff, myself included. So I started thinking, like, what are we missing here? And it all boiled down for me to the importance of strength in numbers. So about 2014, I started kicking around this idea of the Freedom Cell Network. We had an intercadre, a small group in Central Texas that later fell apart due to some personality differences. But thankfully, Derek Bros caught on to the idea, really resonated with him. He started a Freedom Cell group in Houston and then started spreading the idea. And it's since turned into a global network. But it was actually Derek Bros who coined the exit and build term in his book, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, which I believe was written maybe in 2018 or so. So me and him are always playing off of each other, being inspired by one another. And a lot of our work overlaps. We partner in all sorts of stuff together. So he came up with the book, and then I actually didn't know. I heard him say exit and build and use that phrase. I thought that he borrowed it from something, but it turns out that he basically coined the term. So that it just really resonated with me because it's a simple way to define a strategy. We exit the systems we disagree with, and we build the alternatives, or we build the alternatives so as to pave the way for us to peacefully exit without getting crushed or losing our property. So I guess the Freedom Cell thing predated the exit and build thing, but without even understanding the term, that's what we were going for with the Freedom Cell Network. The Freedom Cell Network utilizes the exit and build strategy.
That's great. I'm a big fan of Derek's work as well. I plan on getting him on the channel soon for an interview as well.
Yeah,
So again, doing this in a two-part series, I want to kind of lay things out systematically for people so that it's easy to digest and, more importantly, take action on. So again, diving more into this kind of first stage aspect of the Freedom Cell Network. First of all, how would you define that in simple ways? What is that?
The Freedom Cell Network is a decentralized group that works together to create more freedom in their lives, both for the individual and for all the participants. It's folks that are focused on solutions. We recognize the problem. We know that there's a conspiracy, there's a great reset, there's efforts to control and manipulate people. However, instead of spending so much time debating, researching, and just going on and on about the problem down the rabbit hole, we are asking, what is it that we're going to do about it? And so we're really focused on growing our own food, pulling our kids out of government school, creating parallel economies, working with one another, entrepreneurship, and intentional community is a big piece of it as well. But it all starts with forming a small group of approximately 8 people. We choose the number 8 because there's research by a guy named John David Garcia that shows 8 people is the optimal number of people for maximum creativity. And we are creators in the movement. We're trying to basically create a free society from the ground up. So you start with your little small group of 8, and then you link up with other small groups to form a larger group. And then those larger groups link up with other larger groups to spread out across a given region. And finally, all of these different decentralized, horizontally organized groups connect together to share information and support one another. And that's what forms ultimately the Freedom Cell Network as a whole, which now has over 33,000 global participants.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that perspective about kind of like once you realize the problem, it doesn't do a lot of good of like continuing to, it's like you have this picture of the beast, right? The enemy or whatever. Who cares if it's 4K or like once you see what it is, you don't need to continue to just flesh out all the gory details. Like, what are you going to do about it? Where, what is your response to it? And in my journey of trying to share information, I find that that's a very common soundbite that people put out when they first even start entertaining the idea that there's truth to this is that, well, what can I do about it? There's it's already such a big plan. It's already in motion. I'm just one person. They want you to feel small, and that's exactly the point. So what I love about your system is just like with all brilliant inventions, you're modeling off of nature. You're looking at how does the cells in your body structure themselves. Each cell might be an individual, but when connected to a larger system, they have much greater power than the sum of their parts. And what's beautiful about it is it's interconnected the smaller pieces without making it this big centralized monolithic entity that's prone to inefficiency and corruption and things like that. I think that that's how we should be modeling all of our society regardless, is keeping the actual systems small and intimate. Know your farmer, know your teachers, and things like that, but then interconnect those smaller pieces into a greater whole that are kind of working towards the same goals. I think that's like really the best way to balance the efficiency aspect of that.
Yeah, the further that systems are centralized, the more vulnerable they are to corruption and to problems. And of course, we see this with the supply chain issues. We see this with the centralization of power in the hands of governments. And, of course, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So we're hoping to create systems that are able to maintain cohesion and capable of engaging in coordinated effort absent any type of hierarchy or any type of any one person having authority over other people. And there's actually this term in nature, it's a biological term that I learned, autopoiesis. That's like a self-replicating cell, and it's capable of replicating itself infinitely. And so the way that the network works is you have your little group of 8, but then as that grows, it doesn't just stay one giant group. It breaks up into smaller groups. And as that grows, it breaks up into smaller groups. And what this structure enables us to do is scale to upwards of millions and millions of people. And all the while, the system remains horizontally organized, never taking on a hierarchical nature, which, again, the idea is, like you shared, it allows us to stay connected, it allows us to trade, allows us to make decisions, coordinated effort, but it doesn't allow one party to have control over the other party. And it's all completely voluntary too. So there could even be, like, imagine a cryptocurrency that has a hard fork. So somebody likes this idea of organizing with eight groups, and then these groups interlock into other groups of 8. You form larger groups. People could just fork away and be like, yeah, we don't like the way that these guys are doing this, so we're going to do our thing over here. But we also have a mechanism for identifying bad actors and disassociating from those bad actors by saying, if you guys don't deal with this particular bad actor, then we're going to break away from your group or your cell altogether. So it creates a incentive for people to make sure that those folks that are in their small group are good people and aren't hurting people or harming people or engaging in fraud, right? So there's this there's this mechanism of self-correction that doesn't require coercion. It doesn't require one party to have authority over others. And I'm really excited. I still think that this network is in its infancy. In spite of having tens of thousands of people, we're yet to even get more organized and put these types of decision-making apparatuses into play to really act as a group.
Very cool. And it's reminding me a lot of kind of the way blockchain is built in its fundamentals as well, because again, it's about decentralizing the nodes. And if one node becomes corrupt or has a discrepancy, that just kind of gets, ignored, and like everything else goes about its own consensus mechanism. So it's almost like, instead of for something to try to grow and you're just like, it just gets bloated and unscalable by keeping it as one thing, it's almost like you're taking the DNA of that nucleus and just reproducing it in a sustainable, smaller format. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and the cell thing, in all honesty, I came up with the word cell because I came up with the idea, the idea and the name. Originally, I was trying to be deliberately provocative and kind of play off a terror cell. Of course, we're a bunch of peaceniks. We're not about that in the least bit, but I was trying to be like, let's ruffle some feathers here. But later on, people were like, oh, freedom cells. You mean like cells in the body? And that actually is a much better fit because, like you said, the health of the individual cell is contingent upon the health of the body. Just as the health of the body is contingent upon the health of the cells. And so just the same, the Freedom Cell Network, each individual and each small group is the health of those groups. The vibrancy, this freedom is dependent upon the health and freedom of the entire network. And the entire network is dependent on activated, educated, empowered individuals and groups together. And then we have like a information sharing mechanism, just like cryptocurrency, broadcast information. So it's like we determined that this particular currency or this particular way of communicating ended up not being optimal. And we want to share that with the network so the rest of the nodes, the rest of the groups, the rest of the people can better understand that. And I think it's a wonderful way as things get more authoritarian that we can disperse information and dispatches to the group so we can act together and better protect ourselves from the man.
And it's interesting you brought up that how the phrase came about, because there is still a bit of a parallel, because in the context of terrorist cells or that model, it's the same kind of thing. The idea is that everything is sort of more compartmentalized, so that if one cell, so to speak, gets compromised or gets corrupted, it can be disavowed without compromising the larger network. And in this context, well, they're sort of like limiting how much knowledge, how much information, about who they're serving and what their agenda is like they're kind of just carrying out their particular tasks. So that's that context. But the idea is still the same. Is it's a defense against corruption of the larger system. It kind of like keeps it contained in a little area.
Yep. And like if a virus breaks out, we learn how to overcome the virus. And then just like in a body, you share that information with the other cells so they can better combat the virus. But I guess a lot of people don't think virus or germs exist these days. That's like some heated, contentious debate everyone's all up in arms about. But
right. Let us know in the comments whether virus theory or germ theory is real or not.
There you go.
And so this network, it primarily focuses on essentially the fundamentals, the basics of life, right? Food, how to organize communities. What do you see the strengths and maybe some of the limitations of this system?
Well, one of the limitations is, as a guy that came up with the idea and as a leader in the network and the community, I try to humbly allow for a natural organic growth and evolution of the network, because at the end of the day, I don't have all the answers. I've never built a free society before. I don't know exactly how a global network of tens of thousands, soon to be hundreds of thousands of people ought to operate. So my hope was that, people would just take the bull by the horns, run with this idea and help to grow it and evolve it. Just like, Satoshi Nakamoto, he, she, they, or them created the Bitcoin white paper. And then all these people are like, wow, this is a really cool technology, this decentralized blockchain thing. They just started replicating it, doing their own thing, and it took off on its own. But I've noticed that a lot of people still look to others for direction. And so part of it was me wanting the thing to develop organically in a truly decentralized way. Another one was probably I'm so damn busy and like I don't know all the answers. So sometimes it's hard to lead when you don't really know exactly where to go. But that is one of the limitations. While there's so many people, there's still a bunch of folks that look to leaders for direction. Mm-hmm. And so, I've resisted that in the past, and a lot of anarchists resist that. But I think there's a natural dichotomy between leaders and followers, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not tyranny or anything like that, as long as everything's voluntary. So as a leader, it's up to the folks that are starting these cells, that are creating the network in their own local area, to take the initiative and help to basically cultivate leadership in other people and lead the development of these networks, of these operations and projects. So that'd be one of the limitations that I would say. And then on the other hand, some of the benefits and values, the benefits are that if people are overwhelmed and they're feeling a bit unprepared, we have this network, this vehicle that people can join, and there's just tons of people that are very motivated and excited to help them to create more freedom. And it really does center around how can we become more resilient? How can we become more self-sufficient? How can we decouple ourselves from those systems that are obviously aligned against us? And so we encourage a lot of the basic stuff that people can start with to focus on growing your own food, becoming prepared, having food storage, having a bug out plan. But of course, it expands beyond that. And like I said before, ultimately, we want this network to create the foundation for a budding free society where people support one another. They provide for one another, not in like a communist way, but we're there to help one another, to fulfill one another's wants and needs, most often through an agorist mechanism or through some sort of commerce, although there's a lot of mutual aid involved as well. But if there's parents, for example, they can use the network to identify other parents and collectively pull their kids out of government school. I remember it was really fulfilling. I was at PorcFest a few years ago, and this guy ran up to me. He was like, "Hey, you're John Bush. Wow, the Freedom Cell Network." We felt all alone and isolated up in New York State during COVID and the lockdowns. Then we learned about the Freedom Cell Network. We found this crew. Let me introduce you to my crew. We all pulled our kids out of government school, and now we do a homeschool co-op. And it was like 10 families. So I was really blown away by that. So maybe there's folks that are on a spiritual journey. Maybe there's folks that are into esoteric stuff and magic or whatever. They can come together and leverage just this framework to find other people, and they can go deeper in those areas. They can practice meditation, whatever. They can focus on health. They can form a little health alliance. They can pitch in and buy supplements, bulk, or whatever it may be. So really, people can take it wherever they desire to take it. And it's basically just we want to create the foundation for people to help empower one another.
That's super interesting, actually, and quite profound, because it's almost like the strength is the weakness is the strength, because it's all about freedom, right? Well, freedom can seem like crippling and terrifying to some people, while it sounds like, a utopia to someone else. It's really about the mindset of the person. And so what's interesting about this is it's kind of like this little microcosmic experiment of what would freedom look like, but obviously at a much bigger scale. Like you can kind of take this as a little sample size version of it and let it sort of grow. Like you just got this little petri dish, kind of just, let's see what grows in there. And the, like you said, the lack of leadership is both a limitation and a benefit at the same time, because without centralized power and authority, that is kind of the name of the game, is like you said, the psychology of each person is different. Some people prefer being a leader. Some people prefer being or having a leader and having being a follower, essentially. And finding that balance between authoritarian leadership, which I wouldn't really call leadership at all, because to lead is to facilitate the free will choices of the betterment of all, not enforcing your will, whether it's good or negative. It doesn't really matter, because if you're forcing it, it's not going to lead to genuine growth. It's like propping up a plant, with a stick. It's not going to be able to stand on its own when the wind starts blowing, right? So it's like kind of this hands-off approach that might seem like some might call it, like you don't care or you're not fully stepping in or whatever, but really that could be the best thing for it, is let people see that power vacuum, so to speak, everybody talks about, and with anarchy, and actually stepping in to fill that. It's like, somebody ought to do something. Well, you're somebody. What are you going to do? And it's almost, the beauty of it is that it's so ambiguous. The system itself, it can be, it's whatever you want it to be. Like you said, if it's whatever's your thing, you can use it for that means. And the simplicity of it allows for that kind of infinite use cases. Again, very much like blockchain. It's so simple in its what it actually does, but the implications of it can be so profound. It's difficult to even imagine at this stage because it is so early what it's going to look like in 10 years and what people will choose to take that and actually do with it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it is a trip, and it is like Bitcoin too. I mean, one of the best things Satoshi Nakamoto did was to just birth it and then bail out.
That's
right?
a good point.
And there was a lot of ugliness and a lot of disorder and a lot of chaos, basically, in the development of Bitcoin. And ultimately, the consensus mechanisms ring true and went different ways. And then just the same, if people don't like it, they are free. Nobody's stopping them from branching away, from forking away and starting a Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision or whatever. So, yeah, it is really exciting to think about where things could go. I think as we continue to scale in numbers and become more organized, we definitely need to be more conscious of external threats. But again, the way that the network is designed is it's set up in a decentralized way that allows it to be more anti-fragile than most other institutions and movements. So I'm really excited about that. I'm looking forward to getting more organized while adhering to the decentralized nature and leveraging the network in order to create, in order to allow for group decision-making to take place, voluntary consensus-based decision-making. So like imagine you have your group of 8. That's what we call an intercadre. That's where we encourage people to start. And by the way, folks can go to freedomcells.org, freedomcells.org. We created a website for folks to register completely free to tap into the network. We're also very active on Telegram as well. And so you start with your group of around 8 people. Doesn't have to be 8, can be 6, can be 12, can be whatever. Again, we try to just not make it so rigid. And then you start setting goals with that group. Maybe it's homeschooling, maybe it's preparedness, maybe it's growing food, whatever. Then you link this group up. This group of 8 links up with other groups of 8. Now you have what we call a middle cadre of approximately 64 people, give or take, right? Then those other groups link up with the other groups of 64 to form a larger group that we call a meta cadre. And here in Central Texas, we actually have a really functioning meta cadre. So we have over 700 people in the Central Texas Freedom Cell group, like the umbrella group for Central Texas. And then within that group, there's a Bastrop Fayette County group, which is where I reside. There's a South Austin, there's a downtown Austin, there's a Hill Country, there's a West Hill Country, which is west of Austin. There's a group in Williamson County, which is the county north of Austin. There's a San Marcos Hayes County group, which is south of Austin, a San Antonio group, which is further down IH-35. And so you have this large umbrella group where everyone's connected, but then you have the smaller groups that are more county-based or regional, where everyone's more connected than they are with the larger group, although they're still connected to the larger group. And then finally, within those county or more micro-regional groups, you have the smaller groups. And so there's this mechanism that I've yet to put into practice, or that I've yet to help facilitate putting into practice, where you have your little group of 8. That group delegates one person that kind of speaks on behalf of the group, of course. And if some people in the group of 8 don't want to go along with it, they don't have to go along with whatever's decided or whatever. And so if you have 8 groups of 8, each one of those groups of 8, they appoint or choose. I try to avoid the word elect or representative because we're trying to operate in a new paradigm.
Those
right?
are trigger words.
Yeah, and the big difference is this is all voluntary, right? So imagine 8 groups of 8, each one of those groups appointing one delegate, and then those delegates form a council, so to speak, and that council can communicate information with the other councils, right? And then imagine each one of that group of 8, they pick somebody. Now you have somebody that represents the whole group as a whole. And so one of these groups could put forward a proposal that, hey, we would like to fundraise in order to buy a community center, an event space, and a place for us to host homeschool co-ops. And so the message, the question gets put out to the representatives, the delegates, and then it's all decided there. And I'd love to see it move forward with some mechanism where if some of the groups don't participate, they don't want to fund this purchase of a piece of land to build this community center, then perhaps they have to pay a fee to use it. But the other folks that ponied up the money, they are able to use it for free, something like that. I don't know. But the point is, you can create an actual decision-making mechanism that can allow for the decentralized execution of a coordinated effort, and it can be entirely voluntary and consensus-based. And those individuals and those cells that don't want to go along with it can choose not to participate in that particular act. However, they will still maintain the cohesion and the participation in the group as a whole. Unlike traditional politics, where if somebody else's party gets in office and they're doing things you don't want, it doesn't matter if you like it or not, you're still forced to subsidize those decisions and those pet projects. The Freedom Cell Network offers an opportunity to avoid that and allow people to keep their own money and only put forward their effort, their energy, their resources, their finances, their money towards things that they agree with or they choose to contribute to.
Yeah, it's super interesting. It's almost like you can take certain aspects of how government works, you just make it voluntary, and that's the key difference. It's not that like any kind of organized system is bad. That's a misconception people, I think, get when they hear the word anarchist. They think you just want everybody for themselves. You know, that's not the case at all. Organization is the most efficient way to get things done. The key operative term is simply voluntary. Make it so that you can opt out or even create your own alternatives if that's what you wish to do, and not forcing it on anyone. It really is that simple. So, I mean, with systems like this, you could literally answer the classic question, who will build the roads, or how will we build the roads? It's like, maybe kind of a hybrid system between you can voluntarily fund the construction, but then if you do choose to use a certain road, maybe there would be a toll for you or something like that. I don't know. Of course, this is all hypothetical. That's the whole point. Nobody has all the answers. We've never really had that thing before. Nobody really knows exactly how it would work. But the point is, we have to be free in order to actually try different things and see what does and doesn't work, instead of just having it imposed on us.
Yeah, and one of the unfortunate things that I've been really witnessing and getting quite frustrated with is there's a tendency in our freedom and truth and conspiracy communities for people when they hear some sort of alternative or some proposal for a solution to a problem we're facing, a lot of people are pre-programmed to respond instinctively with an objection or a way that it can't work. I just come across this so often, and it's frustrating. And so with Live Free Academy, the company I started to help people create more freedom, we have this empowerment philosophy. It's a 4-part framework. The first piece is mindset. It's the most important piece. You got to get your mind right, overcome those limiting beliefs. The next part is to have a good, solid strategy of how you're going to get from here to there with plans and goals. The third piece is to work with other people to achieve those goals, like-minded people with the same values. And the final piece is to take massive action. Just dive in, clear the way, and expect that it's going to take more work than you originally anticipated. But the mindset piece is so critical because, with the example of cryptocurrency, people are talking about central bank digital currency. They know the fiat's inflated and manipulated. And then you present to them, hey, what if there was an alternative that's decentralized? It can't be shut down. There's certain cryptos that are completely private. And so we would be able to use this in order to keep doing business with one another, even if they set up this central bank digital currency thing. And for a lot of people, rather than being like, hey, that sounds pretty cool, actually, I'd like to learn more. Sounds like this could actually work. Their first instinct is, well, what if they shut down the internet? What if they make it illegal? What if they hack it? What if there's an EMP and all the electronics go down? Then you're totally screwed. And for some reason, I'm trying to wrap my finger around it. People always just come up with excuses. The same thing. It's like, what if we're encouraging people to avoid the smart cities, avoid the Great Reset by moving out to the country, building community, homesteading, getting away from all the crazy Democrat-controlled cities where all this agenda is being rolled out. Not that the Republicans are any better, but it's just worse in these big mega cities. Mm-hmm. And people's first response oftentimes is like, well, Klaus Schwab said we'll own nothing and be happy. They'll just take our land. What if they confiscate the land like they say in Agenda 21, blah, 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 blah. And so just the same, we're like here trying to present a solution and experiment, and there are some weaknesses and vulnerabilities. We don't have all the answers, but at least we're trying. So I just want to encourage people, perhaps they are folks that are listening that have that tendency to focus on how it can't work, why it won't work, to try to flip the script and instead look at ways that things can work and ways that things are working, because cryptocurrency is working and people are using cryptocurrency in order to maintain financial sovereignty and privacy and keep it away from the eyes and the hands of the man. So we need more people to, when they see a problem, like continuously comes up with crypto, what if they shut the internet down? The thing to do is say, okay, if you're really concerned with that, like if you're so concerned you're not going to do crypto because you think they'll shut the internet down, what are you doing about that? Tell me about the mesh network projects that you're interested in. Tell me about Helium. Tell me about Quartal has plans on their roadmap to do a decentralized internet. And just more often than not, I think people are trying to make sense and justify their lack of action. And perhaps they feel insecure that they lack the knowledge to understand crypto, or they lack the resources to buy land. So instead of getting real with themselves and figuring out a way to make it happen, they simply make excuses and try to rationalize their inability to execute on their ideas and their desires. I don't know. That's just something I've been really hashing out, and it keeps coming up over and over and over. It's just everybody's a freaking objection machine. And it's like, come on, people, we need everyone to step up because it's crunch time,
No, that's definitely on point. And the irony is, worst case scenario, even if all those things happen, you would still just be back in the same position you're already in. So why not just take the risk? Because what's the greater risk? Well, the bigger question you should be asking yourself is, what if you do nothing?
Yep.
And you stay exactly where you are? That doesn't sound like a very good outcome to me. So at least might as well try something, and maybe it doesn't work out, but at least you tried. So
yeah, a lot of people that are complaining about crypto, what if they shut down the internet, blah, 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 they're using Visa and a bank account. And like, that's already corrupted and controlled. So you got to at least try something. You're right.
Yeah.
Inaction is not the answer.
And if they do shut down the internet, which they won't, we got bigger problems to worry about anyways. So it's kind of a moot,
we're all screwed.
It's kind of a moot point at that point anyways. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I just want to take a quick moment to offer you a special gift. It's the free initiation package download. This is a free download package that includes the Toolbox mini course. I created this package to equip you with all of the essential tools you need for any type of energetic or magical practice for anyone serious about their spiritual development. It's comprised of 3 parts: the circle, the breath, and the voice, where you'll learn how to cast the circle of the Magi, various breathwork techniques, including a powerful guided breathwork meditation, rune galler, and more. You'll also get access to the Inner Sanctum, our private Facebook group and Discord server, as well as some Wizard Factory wallpapers for desktop and mobile, all for free. And for those who've already seen this course, I'm happy to announce that this is a brand new remake with better production and even more information. You can find the link to get yours in the description below. So check it out, and let's get back to the content. So I'd love to kind of shift into the action mode here. For a new person, this is all new information. What would like the onboarding process look like? What would be the first, best, simplest steps that they can take to, if this is resonating and they like this and they want to get involved, how would they go about that?
Yeah, the first thing would be to go to freedomcells.org. That's our website, new and improved. We just launched the version 3.0. And so from there, you can register. We actually have it translated into English, German, Dutch, Portuguese, from Portugal, and the Brazilian Portuguese, and Spanish as well, which is really pretty freaking cool because it's a global network, right? So we didn't want to leave everyone out that doesn't speak English. So you go to the website, you click to sign up. You input some information about you, your name, email. Now, of course, people are like, I don't want to be on a list, blah, blah. When it comes to lists, if we're all on a list, the list becomes meaningless. It's just us, right? But you can use a fake name, or you can use a fake dummy email if you're really that concerned. So again, these are the excuses that people come up with to justify their inaction. But you sign up on the website, name, email, share some of your skills, share what your goals are, share. You can identify a role, like you're a landowner,
Your pronouns.
No pronouns, but if you want to put that in the mission, whatever, by all means, not prohibited. I'm a technologist, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a permaculturist, right? So we just kind of know who the person is, what their role is in providing value. You can choose multiple, of course. And then you put your willingness to meet up. Are you willing to meet online? Are you willing to meet in person, right? Because we want to just like really spur action and physical connection. That's really what it's all about. That's why one of our principles is localization. We want people to get out and meet people in their local area, but also maintain the group and share the info and support one another. So once you register, then you can add an address. So you have to put a real address, but I would encourage people not to put their home address, rather put a park down the street or a coffee shop that you frequent. And once you put yourself on the map, then you'll be able to find other people in your area. And again, people are already thinking I don't want to put myself on a map. They're going to get me and blah, blah, blah. So it's like, just do a different address, do the park or do the coffee shop. And then you'll see like, wow, you pull up a map, you search within 10, 15 miles of your city. And you may be pretty surprised that if you live in a decently populated area, there's going to be dozens of people. And you can then go to these profiles and find the people that are willing to meet up, organize a meetup. Every Thursday, we're going to go to the coffee shop and we're going to have some drinks and talk shop and stuff. So it's all about getting people oriented towards meeting in person and working together to support one another in their common goals towards greater freedom. We also have a guide, a Freedom Cell guide, where we break down step by step. So let's say you start with the network as one person, you're just one person. We share what the good strategy is to get involved as just one person. Maybe you have 3 or 4 buddies, you all join together. Then we encourage people, well, each one of those 3 or 4 people commit to go recruit another 4 people. Now, all of a sudden, instead of having one group, you have 4 groups, right? Or if you have a big group, like maybe you already have a meetup or you're disillusioned with the Libertarian Party, but you got a crew of 24 people that used to go stump and politic together. You take that group of 8 and you divide the group up. You keep 24. You keep the group of 24 as a larger group, but then you identify, okay, these people are in this area, these people are in that area. Maybe we'll split up geographically, or maybe we'll split up based on interest. These are the families, these are the younger single folks, or whatever it may be. So there's all sorts of great guidance and instruction. And really what we try to do, it's not like rules. You have to do it this way, although we do have some quote unquote rules. One of them is no politics. No change.org petitions, no vote for my guy, no support this legal effort. It's okay for people to do that in their own world, in their own life, on their own platform, on their own social network. But we are purposefully keeping this a very clean place. I've been saying lately, it's clean of all politics and BS. Of course, we won't allow anyone to advocate for the initiation of violence. And those are really the big ones that are big no-nos. But other than that, people can leverage the network for their own benefit and use it to help find people. And so, yeah, freedomcells.org. We have a nice process. It'll step you through. So hopefully you're not lost in the dark. And if anybody has any issues, we have a support email and we have a crew of volunteers and some paid people that are responding to make sure everyone is able to use the website to the best of their abilities.
Amazing. And another question I have. So say you're a new person, you're interested, but you don't feel like you know what do you bring to the table, because you don't want to just join in and with the mentality of like, what can I get? How can these people help me? How would you encourage them to think about themselves in terms of what assets they might bring to the network, what they can offer?
Yeah, I've been joking lately. Ask not what the Freedom Cell Network can do for you, but what you can do for the Freedom Cell Network. So I don't know. Everybody has skills. Everybody has something to offer. And at the end of the day, I've done political organizing and all this stuff and organizing protests and movements and stuff for years now. And I always just appreciated people showing up. So even if they're new or they're uncertain of how they fit in, sometimes it just helps to just show up. So if you're not the leadership type, hopefully there's a leader in your area. And if there's not, then sometimes it's up to each and every one of us to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, step outside of our comfort zone, and maybe try to host a meetup. Just say, hey guys, we're getting together on this day. You can always invite somebody to speak if you don't want to lead a meeting, or it could just be a social. There doesn't have to be an agenda. There doesn't have to be getting up in front of a group of people and talking. It's just, we're going to show up here and hang out and have a beer. If you don't drink, have a tea or have a water or coffee or whatever, and we'll just be here at this time. And there is no agenda except to get to know one another. So I would just encourage people to show up if there's an opportunity to show up. They don't have to come and say they're going to help in this way. They don't even have to help or even connect with people, but just showing up, I think, is important. And then slowly but surely, they'll come to find I'm grateful. And I think this is because the people that are in leadership positions are good people that are conscious, right? Derek Bros perhaps has attracted the most people to the network above anyone else. And he's got this whole conscious resistance network. And of course, Derek's not perfect, but he's very self-aware, and he's into the spirituality and the self-reflection. And so we all try to be the best people that we can be. And I'm proud that we've attracted people like that. So I've done activism for 20 years, and more so than the FBI infiltrating a group and destroying it, the groups destroy themselves due to infighting and endless drama. And thankfully, that hasn't been the case, at least with our Central Texas crew or other groups. And so we're very much don't have time for drama and gossip and BS. We're very much about getting down to business. And perhaps because we overemphasize and we focus so heavily on solutions and building, there just isn't the spare time to talk smack about people. That's something I really appreciate about the network. So for the new people, they'll come around and they will probably feel comfortable because everybody's chill and laid back and really friendly.
Right. I think that's a good point to note there, is that even if you don't feel like you bring any skills to the table, fellowship is of value in and of itself, especially in this day and age where we're so isolated and disconnected. And just having the ability to connect with like-minded people that happen to live in your area, that's huge. So just, take it one step at a time and just kind of get plugged in and then see where it takes you. I'm actually not connected myself, but I'm going to be plugging in and getting involved, because I think even at the most basic capacity, just getting in there and kind of starting that journey is important.
Come on. What area are you in?
I'm just south of Dallas.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, right on. Well, yeah, there's a strong crew in Dallas. They call themselves the Vibe Tribe, voluntarist, intent on building and exiting. They even have like a newsletter, and they do regular events and all sorts of stuff. So you'll tap right in. I was going to say earlier, we're very active on Telegram as well. So we have the website. We manage and control the website. It's hosted by a fellow freedom lover. So we're not sharing anyone's information with anyone. We're not, it's completely private, although, of course, the NSA could backdoor and everything. And not everything's encrypted. So don't do anything stupid or don't call for illegal things, right? But if people want to break the law and they're voluntary and they're not doing anything unethical, by all means, but I wouldn't encourage folks to use a public platform for that purpose. But that being said, we're also very active on Telegram. Telegram, they have done censorship in the past, but not really for folks talking about the shot, for example, or COVID or anything like that. They did apparently take off Russia Today, which I'm not a big fan of, and apparently like some Palestinian activists or something. I don't know, but they haven't messed with us. And it's just a great place because there's a lot of people there chatting. It's a cool platform. So there's some solid ways to tap in. And we have a directory with over 5,000 people following it. And that lists out and connects folks with all of the Telegram channels and groups as well.
Outstanding. Well, any last kind of parting words you want to leave people with a final message?
Yeah, it's let's all try our best to come out of our shells, because what we're facing as a civilization is pretty dire. I've been studying this whole New World Order thing for 20 years now. And back in the day, it was more speculative, and it was more, we need to act now so we can stop this New World Order from coming to being. And it was always like this distant thing happening in the future. They were slowly putting together. But it became all the more real after the COVID-19 pandemic So the
It's in your face
technology,
now, pretty much.
yeah, it's hardcore. And the technology now exists for this technocracy and this control system, prison planet, to be fully implemented. So if we don't do something now to at least create like a Noah's Ark to help protect our crew, then it could be in the future they've created a Chinese style control paradigm where it's next to impossible to resist or revolt. So it's of critical importance that we do everything we can now. We double down on our commitment to the cause of freedom. We build these alternative systems that will help to protect the possibility of future for future generations. And we step out and think outside the box and get outside of our comfort zone and go out and meet some people through the Freedom Cell Network.
Love it. Sounds great. Anything you want to plug to the audience? You've got courses, you've got Exit and Build.
Oh, yeah, sure. We just wrapped up a budget workshop, homesteading on a budget, Exit and Build homesteading on a budget workshop. Through the work we did with the Exit and Build Land Summit, that was all about helping people to exit the cities, buy land, and build community in the country. We found that a lot of people had an objection, a limiting belief that I can't possibly homestead or buy land or move out of the city because I don't have enough money. And so we're like, you can still homestead on a budget, and there's actually creative ways to get on land, even buy land, if you just get resourceful. That's what Tony Robbins says. Success isn't about the resources that you have, rather how resourceful you are. So we did a whole workshop all about that, and people can check it out at livefree.academy/budget, livefree.academy/budget. And then several months ago, we did this Exit and Build Land Summit with all these incredible speakers. We had 450 people, 25,000 plus people registered, thousands watched online. And we're offering the first 2 days of that for folks to watch for free. They can go to exitandbuildlandsummit.com, exitandbuildlandsummit.com to learn more about that.
Great. And of course, as I said, we will be doing a second segment here with John covering the Exit and Build stuff. I think it's an integral piece of the next stage of the puzzle. Once you do get kind of like connected and plugged in, it's a way that you can go much further with your own personal liberation journey there. So I'm super looking forward to that. John, what a legend. Thank you for being on here. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
If you all enjoyed this video, again, please smash that like button below. It really helps us out. And until next time, be empowered, be inspired, and be encouraged.